3 minutes. 2 movies? Battle Remake.
Welcome to Battle Remake. This is Buzzmead.
And I'm Eric Little.
We're coming to you from, where are we again? The Regal 12 or something?
We are in Theater 7 here, Regal 12 in Vienna, West Virginia, the Grand Central Mall.
Yeah, this is like a private theater for just cool people, really.
Yeah, I mean, I have a personal screen here. Every time I want, to see something, I just kind of snap my fingers and boom, here it is. I mean,
yeah, it's pretty small. We're here checking out the new Ghostbusters, and through the magic of technology, we'll let you know how it is afterwards, so stay tuned. We'll talk about the original first here. So I had a chance to check it out this week, did you?
Yes, I did.
Cool. I think I learned a little bit from doing the Jungle Book, and I think we talked about this too, and we'll try to condense it down to maybe 5 subjects.
That works.
Okay. So we'll do like 5 rounds. And I mean, so like, are we giving points or just not really?
I don't think we need to, based on the reviews that we've heard.
All right, so round 1, let's talk story. So obviously, what do you think about the original story? From the film, the 80s film.
That's pretty simple and straightforward. The town is getting haunted with ghosts, and they're having a lot of ghost encounters around the same time. These professors are studying the paranormal, and then their funding gets cut, so they go into private business for themselves, and they become the talk of the town until the utility companies get them, and for a brief time they're thrown in jail. And then when the city leaders realize, oh wait, those are the guys that can bail us out, here they are. They come and they save the day after lots and lots of destruction, but They went out in the end.
Right. So I watched it this week, and I think the thing that I love about the story is the core 3 group of Ghostbusters and the camaraderie that you have from them, and how like each one of them like brings something different to the table, and they each have their unique personalities and stuff. And I think that's what I think that carries the film a lot.
This is basically Bill Murray playing himself in what we perceive to be Bill Murray of the 1980s, just kind of living big, larger than life, doesn't take anything seriously, and it's not hard to look at that role, and really even his role from Stripes to some measure, as kind of the way we imagine him off screen throughout that entire decade.
I think it also works really good as a almost like an origin story too. I mean, just them coming together, and like why they come together, and like what happens like once they're, and I think that's the odd thing too, is that it's a quick origin story, because I mean, like before you know it, like they're already in business and they're catching ghosts, and everyone knows who they are, and they've been established like as a group and stuff, so I really like that about the story. I thought it works more as a comedy that has like some scary parts. I mean, I don't really see it as a horror film that's actually funny.
No, and actually I didn't get to watch it, but I saw that there was a video someone put on YouTube of Ghostbusters reimagined as a horror film, and the original one reimagined as a horror film, and it turned out to be kind of funny. But no, you're right, it's a comedy that kind of masquerades as a scary movie. It has some parts that are supposed to be scary, and somewhere in that there's the comedy. Yeah. To me, it's not a laugh out loud comedy. I don't really, and I don't know if that's time. I don't know if that's just the sensibility of it. But there's not a whole lot of stuff that I watch and laugh out loud with, and I think that might be just kind of the way a lot of those Harold Ramis, Dan Aykroyd films are. Yeah. And is there a lot of stuff in Caddyshack that makes you laugh out loud? Is there a lot of stuff, I mentioned Stripes earlier, there's a lot of stuff in Stripes that make you laugh out loud. I mean, some of the quotes and some of the lines, but that's about it. Those are just funny, good-humored movies.
Yeah, I think I laughed a lot. I chuckled a lot. I don't know if there was like any huge laughs, but I chuckled a lot. I do think I got let down by the third act a little bit. It loses something on the third act once they start to fight the Stay Puft. I think it kind of loses me a little bit, but
because how do they survive the explosion at the top of the building? Like, yeah, that's I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay. Let's go around to here. Let's talk about the actual Ghostbusters. What do you think about the actual like men playing the Ghostbusters? I think you mentioned Harold Ramis and Bill Murray. You have Dan Aykroyd in there as well, who came up with this story. And then what's the fourth guy?
Ernie Hudson.
What'd you say?
Ernie Hudson.
Ernie Hudson. Yeah. Okay. So, so what do you think about those guys?
Well, Ramis kind of is taking a backseat like he tends to do in a lot of movies that he writes and directs. It seems like he's only in the movies just as any movie he's ever in. It seems like it's in like as a secondary part. His involvement in the picture itself is secondary to what he's doing behind the picture, and he likes the ability to create and direct. So you're going to get Ramis in the secondary role. Bill Murray's kind of the larger than life guy. He can carry that picture. That's what people wanted out of Bill Murray in the 1980s. Aykroyd plays a really nice second banana to all that. The Harold Ramis Annie Potts infatuation is kind of a neat little subplot because she actually kind of develops a thing for him. Ernie Hudson does a fine job in this film, but it's really clunky how he's thrown in there so late. And he's just a guy that answered a WAD ad. Yeah, it's like the studio or focus group said, all right, well, we need some diversity in this film. It's like, all right, well, let's have this guy who's just looking for a job, and here you go. So I kind of wonder if in the remake where Leslie Jones is the lone black Ghostbuster, I kind of wonder if they're going to do the same thing with her. Okay. Though there are some rumors that Kate McKinnon's character is going to be gay, which would add a layer of diversity to that as well. So,
okay, I think Harold Ramis. I don't think he's a secondary. I mean, I think he has his own persona in there. I think he was brought in to help Dan Aykroyd write the script, so like that is there. But I think he's doing a good job as his own type of character, as the straight scientist guy, who collects spores and fungus. I thought the weakest character of them all, it was definitely Ernie Hudson. I mean, because he has some times in there where it looks like he's going a certain way, and then all of a sudden, in the next scene, he's with them, and then in the next scene, he's like, I love this town or whatever. I don't know. It was a weak character to me, but I think you're right. It's diversity
because it seemed like an add-on. That's why it
definitely did.
I mean, and besides, there's that quality that the other three have of how recognizable their films are, and Ernie Hudson doesn't have that. Yeah. You could name one other film right now that all three of those other men did right now, and you can't do that with Ernie Hudson.
No, I can't.
No. So,
all right, let's go round three here. Let's go the villain of the picture. I guess it'd be Gozer.
Could be. You could go with the Stay Puft Man. You could go with the green guy. I mean, you could just say ghosts.
Slimer.
Yeah, I'm going to say ghosts. Slimer. Okay. I just say ghosts in general.
Yeah.
Slimer's such a cool looking ghost, and I give Slimer points for giving us Ecto Cooler. So,
oh yeah, that's classic.
Yeah, Ecto Cooler is one of the best things that's ever come from the Ghostbusters, in my opinion. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is the villain that you would like to eat.
Yes.
And you'd like to just grab a piece and just like, and you think it's very an edible thing. Yeah. The demonic spirits, the Gower and stuff like that adds kind of an odd, darker direction to the picture that you don't necessarily need. But I guess if you want to go to demon possession, that's you have to go that deep. So
yeah. And I thought it was fine, but I think we're gonna get
just the ads.
Okay. We'll try to keep talking. I thought it was a weak part of the film. I mean, but I mean, to me, I'm not sure that's an important part of the film either.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not like you think they're going to lose at any point in it, so.
That's true, yeah. Should we keep going or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be like the other, it won't be that bad.
Okay, yeah, I don't believe that. All right, so let's talk about the music here of the original film. Like, what do you think about the music?
Ray Parker Jr. came up with a theme that's now classic, and it's kind of a shame because Ray Parker Jr. actually was a pretty good artist in the 80s. He had other hits, You Can't Take That, and Jack and Jill was the other one I like. I can't think of the name of the other one. I think it's like You Can't Take That or something like that. But he had some catchy songs, but you forget about that because of the Ghostbusters theme. The music was appropriate to kind of set the mood at the appropriate time in this one.
Yeah.
So I think it was very nicely done, and with a great theme song, an iconic theme song.
Yeah, I think the score is great too as well. I mean, I really noticed that, like watching the film, that it's really good.
Mm-hmm.
We'll wrap it up here really quick here. Let's talk special effects. What did you think about the special effects in the original film?
I thought they were nicely done because you're using a lot of substances. He comes up and he's slimed, he's covered in a clear goo, and then he's covered in marshmallow, or the white foam that's supposed to be marshmallow for one scene. There are a lot of effects where the ground opens up in a couple different places and they swallow cars and things like that. That couldn't have been cheap or easy to do, and they had to do those things for real. There was not a lot of animation.
Yeah.
And the animation they did have, that CGI that made the ghosts. So they're really at the cutting edge already, as it is. So I thought it was nicely done. The effects are what I would have expected for a movie from the late 80s.
Yeah. I think they're good. I don't know if they hold up, though, all the time. There was a few scenes that I thought were kind of, kind of iffy, I thought. And, I mean, it is a film that's almost 34 years old, kind of. So, but if there's anything that I thought was weak about it, it was probably that. That it takes you out of the film sometimes, because that Zool can't move around because he's just in the ground, and that's just how he is, kind of. So, but let's wrap this up with like what you want to see from this film.
What I want to see is a movie that plays to the strengths of the four lead characters, because these are four very funny women in this movie. They are very capable of carrying a picture. Kristen Wiig has been very funny in movies. She's been very serious in movies. She's a very talented actress. Kate McKinnon is a very emerging actress. We haven't seen the best from her by a long shot. Leslie Jones is just kind of that raw diamond in the rough that they're really working to refine, but she's hilarious.
Yeah.
And Melissa McCarthy is a bona fide star.
Yeah.
So these are four very funny women.
Yeah.
Now, if they do, like some movies do, and play too much to the strengths of the old script and stay within those confines, within that box, then they're going to make some mistakes.
Yeah.
If they go outside the box and they make jokes that are catered to those four women and their strengths and their sensibilities, because they're very independent, they're very talented on their own, they all have their own voices. If they stay with that, I think they can make a very workable film out of this.
Yeah. And I think I would add that I want to see first and foremost a good story, with some good characters that I care about. I want to see a funny film, and I want to see some good camaraderie like between them, and I don't know. I don't bring a lot of expectation into this. I mean, like we've talked to a lot of people like already, at the conventions and stuff who didn't really give this film a chance.
Yeah.
So I'm just hoping to see the best thing out of the whole thing.
I want to see a film that stands alone on its own merit and doesn't necessarily have to be setting up a second and or a third film. It doesn't have to be setting up a franchise. If this film stands alone on its own, independently of what the others in the series did, and then independently of what they might do down the road, and it's a quality film on its own, that's what I want to see here.
All right, cool. All right, we'll be right back with what we thought of the new Ghostbusters. You're listening to Battle Remake. Welcome back to Battle Remake. We just came out of the theater, and we're going to talk about this new movie. So obviously spoilers. If you don't want to know what happens in the movie, obviously you don't want to listen. So first, Eric's going to give a shout out to some guys we met at Monster Bash the other week.
Yeah, this is if you don't want spoilers for the new film. I'm going to give you a few seconds to kind of go do something or change your channel or put up a different podcast. The Northeast Ohio Ghostbusters operate to try to raise money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. They make appearances in costume. They got a pretty cool tricked-out vehicle, and they have really elaborate costumes. They go around to entertain at birthday parties and things like that, and what they try to do is to raise enough money through those appearances to grant someone's Make-A-Wish in the Northeast Ohio area. So if you're in the Northeast Ohio area, the website is neoghostbusters.com. They're trying to raise over $7,000 so a special wish in the Cleveland area can get granted to a child with a life-threatening or terminal illness. Again, the website is neoghostbusters.com. Ghostbusters.com. They got a Facebook page as well, a really good cause, and you and I were interested in they were fun to talk to, those guys, when we met them at Monster Bash, and then we found out they were doing something that was really cool for kids that, maybe need a lift, and I think that's an extremely noble cause. So we want to give a shout out to the Northeast Ohio Ghostbusters, neoghostbusters.com.
Yeah, and we talked to Jonathan and Trevor, and they had opinions on this film already. I think they were going to go see it on Tuesday. So we just came out of it. What did you think about the story?
I feel like I enjoyed this more than you did, by the way.
You'd probably be right.
Yeah. I thought the story was fine. The idea is they're three of the four of them are scientists. The Kristen Wiig character is trying to be a tenured physicist at Columbia, and is basically burdened down by her childhood friend. That's the Melissa McCarthy character, who she had collaborated with on a paranormal book at some point about ghosts. So when Kristen Wiig goes to confront Melissa McCarthy about it, Melissa McCarthy's like, I'm not taking... Well, she at first balks about taking the book down from the internet, and that's where they meet the Kate McKinnon character, who's the assistant to Melissa McCarthy. They get called to investigate a ghost, and kind of realize that Kristen Wiig's back on the wagon again. She's all in about believing in these things, and that's when the tenure people at Columbia say, no, we have this internet video of you just looking like a lunatic.
Right.
So they fire her, and eventually Melissa McCarthy and Kate McKinnon's employers fire them. And what happens is they basically go into business, much like in the original film. They make a hire of a receptionist. The Leslie Jones character got involved earlier than the Ernie Hudson character did.
Yeah.
I like that part a lot. And so the four of them go into business, and they invent these devices to try to capture these ghosts. Unlike in the original film, the city's not cooperative early on.
Right.
There were a lot of these films in the 80s, I feel like, with the city's cooperative of some kind of vigilante force. We've done RoboCop on this show before.
Right.
Of course, the original Ghostbusters was like that, but it wasn't like that in this one. And I think that was more representative of what you'd see nowadays. We'd be a lot more skeptical nowadays of a body that would come in and try to fight ghosts. So
I don't know about that.
So you get the deal where they're kind of rebuffed, and no one wants to take them seriously. We want to diminish their contribution, and then later on, they end up having to save the day.
Yeah.
And they finally get the resources and the recognition they need from the city.
Yeah. Okay. So Eric did a good job of recapping the whole story. To me, I think it's almost a good story, but not quite. I feel like they were leaning hard on the Kristen Wiig, Melissa McCarthy relationship as children, and I don't think they leaned on it hard enough. I think that needed to be more cemented, because that's your Dan Aykroyd and that's your Bill Murray.
Yeah, like they rely on it at the end, but we don't really get a whole lot of insight into why they maybe fell apart. And I agree with that. There were some parts later on in the story where I was kind of like, wait a minute, like for instance, toward the end of the film, after they capture a ghost, then they're kind of shuffle off to the side. They're fake arrested or whatever,
right,
in front of the press. Kristen Wiig ends up in a hospital while the other three end up out, and that's when the ghost attack occurs. The big ghost attack at the end occurs. Yeah. And they act like Kristen Wiig was almost sent away or put herself away, and she's rejoining them, like it's some conscious decision she's made to, all right, I guess I'll be a Ghostbuster again.
Yeah.
And that was a little weird to me. That wasn't adequately explained. There were some times that I thought the story did a nice job to set things up. Like I thought the story did a really good job with the science and with the technology, because I have some issues with that in the original Ghostbusters. Yeah. It's very glossed over in the original Ghostbusters, the science and the actual mechanisms of how they're going to catch the ghosts. Yeah. And I like the Kate McKinnon character in this one as just that techno whiz who's always innovating and inventing new ways to catch these ghosts. So,
and I have a problem with that, because I think this is my problem with the film in general, is that it's really, really heavy on technology, and this means this, and this is what means this. When they do that and they don't really focus on the characters and the relationships between the characters, like in the original, I don't need that technology, because I care about that character and that character being friends. It doesn't matter how a trap works. It doesn't matter that. It matters that guy is the friend, that guy, so you want them, to live, and I feel like this movie was way too much jargon as far as like scientific jargon that didn't even matter.
If I had an issue with the movie, it's the fact that when they got to save the third act, when they got to any point of confrontation or conflict, it tried to be Step Brothers in the way that they had the dialogue and the way they tried to resolve things. Yeah. They tried to resolve it with where every conversation broke down into a Step Brothers like impasse, where it made no sense, and you're supposed to laugh at the hilarity and the ridiculousness of it. Yeah. And I just wasn't feeling it. Yeah. And I thought that slowed the film down. Like, I didn't think it was a bad film or a bad story.
Really, it's not a terrible film. No.
The premise of it is okay, but I think there's some elements like that just really bog things down. And then you're right, they don't do a whole lot to develop the characters in places. They don't do a whole lot to move it along in critical areas. But like I was saying, they do a lot of nice callbacks. Yeah. Where they set up the weaponry and what the weaponry can do, and things like that. There are a couple other ones that I'm forgetting right now, but things that they had set up previously in the film, and then when they solve it, you're like, oh, that's how they're going to do that. Right. So.
The last thing that I want to say about the story is that I feel like instead of focusing on story, they focused on comedy sometimes, and it's almost like they gave up plot in order to make a joke. I mean, a perfect example is when they're interviewing Chris Hemsworth as the what do you call him? The receptionist. That scene goes on way too long, and it's not funny. Yeah. And there's no reason, that we even need that in the plot. We don't even need him because he's not important to the plot,
Yeah, and that's the first place that really breaks down in like an odd, what was I saying, in a Step Brothers kind of conversation. It really breaks down there for no good reason. Yeah. And I don't really see the need for that. And then it happens again in the later point in the film. You're just kind of like, oh goodness, this is the thing that they're going to do. Yeah. And
he slows the film down.
Yeah. He comes in to play later on when he's possessed and ends up leading the rest of the ghosts. But after that,
Okay, so let's talk about the actual Ghostbusters. What'd you think of the cast?
I thought the Kristen Wiig character is basically trying to be the Dan Aykroyd type. There's the more level-headed one, and then the Melissa McCarthy one kind of goes out. There's the Bill Murray. You got the.
I don't know about that.
I don't think you can I don't think you can cast these in exactly the same archetypes as the original, because there's no comparison for not Leslie Jones, but Kate McKinnon, which is good because she's
like Egon.
Well, she's
supposed to be kind of.
Well, but she is the talent though that is like a once. I think we're going to look back at her as an actress in about 10 years and be like, wow, she doesn't compare to anybody. She's a once in a generation talent. Yeah. That's just so eccentric and funny and just a big bursting ball of energy on the screen. Yeah. To make a Saturday Night Live comparison, I kind of feel like she compares to a Gilda Radner in terms of the way she's just got. You see her on screen in anything that she's in, and she's just pure energy right out of the gate. Okay. And she's just got a spark. She'll go as far as she needs to go to get the laugh or to get the joke in a situation. And then I really like that Leslie Jones just wants to get involved, and they're just like, all right, you can do it. Yeah. and they get involved early on. Yeah. And it makes some sense.
Yeah, I think she was the best character out of them all. She was funny, and her character was more developed than the Ernie.
Ernie Hudson.
Yeah, Ernie Hudson character. I thought Kristen Wiig was incredibly weak. It was just it was weak, and it wasn't like her character. Like it wasn't written well, because like she would do things that were out of character. Like all of a sudden, like she wants to be with Chris Hemsworth for some reason. When there's been like no any kind of thing in the movie that she wants to be with somebody, or that she's like that, and then when she let go of the ghost, that didn't make sense. That just came out of nowhere. When she it's like they catch a ghost and then they want
the Bill Murray character again. the three living Ghostbusters make cameos, but Bill Murray's is a little bit more than a cameo. He plays a debunker.
Right.
They see him in a television hit, then he actually comes by, and with him in attendance, they try to show him the ghost. Well, they let it out because of Kristen Wiig's irresponsible, reckless decision, which, like you said, is out of character. Yeah, and the ghost ends up throwing Bill Murray out a window and killing Bill Murray.
Yeah.
But to go back to what you were saying about Kristen Wiig, I don't think the way they wrote that really shows the respect for her abilities and talents. She's so much better of an actress than what they wrote that character to be.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know, she almost plays like she's a passive bystander for much of the film, and I don't understand why they had to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, just watching the original, like this week, it's really interesting because Bill Murray is the least
invested.
He's the least invested, and he doesn't believe in the stuff really. I mean, he's a scientist, but he doesn't actually buy into it, and that kind of helps the whole film because I think he actually plays the audience. He is the audience in that film, and how I would feel if someone said that to me, that's how he feels. And it kind of goes a long way towards that story, like whereas everybody's on board in this film, and there's not that voice of reason there anywhere. Yeah,
and I think they try to do that a little bit with the Bill Murray character in this one. You know, but that character's caught somewhere between a cameo and a bit part.
Right.
So it's kind of odd how that's played out.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about. I guess the villain was the other one that we did. The villain of this film was a weird one. It's like a janitor type guy, and he's like scorned, I guess, by society. I would say probably, right?
Yeah. He's basically one of those types that, you know, we all knew those people in high school that felt like they were bullied and the world was out to get them, and they were so much greater or bigger than their place in the world. And that's really, to be quite honest, what we hear about a lot of terrorists and criminals and dictators, you know, that they just feel like they're so much more brilliant than their life, you know, is giving them. So they decide to take matters into their own hands and terrorize to get that power and the status they feel like they deserve, the prestige that they think they got coming to them. Mm-hmm. So this villain is very much like that. Someone who works what we would consider kind of a lowly job. He works at a fancy hotel, but he's a custodian essentially.
He has the run of that basement though, because he builds a huge machine in the basement of this hotel.
Somehow, in the basement of what's believed to be about a 4 or 5 star hotel in the middle of Manhattan.
It's called the Mercado.
Yeah. He is able to just build this massive machine. I don't know how that plays out, but as a villain, I thought. I kind of like him as the master puppeteer, and I like how they kind of figure out that there is somebody that's driving this spiritual entity, and that they're using existing, you know, things in the supernatural realm, the idea of the ley lines, and how they figured that out based on mapping the incidents of paranormal activity. Again, that goes back to some of the science with it, you know, the science of the instruments, how that works, and I like that they got. So you and I disagree a little bit about that. I like that they got technical enough to kind of give some order to it. You know, like there's a reason that this location is where it's going to be, and there's a reason that.
No, I like that.
Yeah. I thought that was a neat little thing to do, and then it gave the Kate McKinnon character a needed piece of a serious contribution. You know, because she has a lot of oddball sayings and oddball lines in this movie, but you know, when she gave a very reasoned explanation for why this was, and she was wanting to figure that out and whip out the book and you know, decide that, hey, there is a pattern, there's a method to this. I thought that was kind of a neat touch.
I think the plan is cool. I'm not sure I dug the actor or his performance or even his motivation. I thought it was a weak motivation.
It was very weak. It's one of those things. But to be honest, though, look at some of the crimes that are pulled. Look at terrorist attacks and shootings and things like that. Are those not pulled off for very similar motivations? I didn't like this group of people, so I went in and killed like 49 of them. I mean, that's the pulse attack right there, basically.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
You know, I mean, and I'm not trying to trivialize that by bringing it up in a podcast, but it's the same premise. Like it's one of those deals to where, you know, that's why people move the way they do. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but what I'm saying is it's how people act, unfortunately, anymore. So maybe what we think is a weak motivation is kind of in the eyes of the beholder.
I guess you're right about that. Let's move on to the music of the film, which was pretty much the Ghostbusters theme over and over again.
There were like 5. I counted 4 in the end credits, but there were, I think, as I counted throughout, like 5 different versions, including like the original version at the very beginning, which the opening sequence of the movie mirrors the original one.
Yep.
Scene at the beginning where we establish the ghost, and then quick title with the actual intro, and then it fades out quickly. But I'd have to look it up. But the main cover sounds like Fallout Boy, or But we get a bunch of different kinds of Ghostbusters themes. There was an instrumental one halfway through the film that I leaned over to you and said, I really like this one. I thought it was a nice scene setter for what they're about to go into. But yeah, you're right. I could have used 1 or 2, but not 5 different versions of the Ghostbusters theme. Other than that, it was just I thought the score was okay. The music selections were all right outside of that. I don't think it's a soundtrack that people are going to be running out to buy. I don't imagine people ran out to buy the original soundtrack either. So
it was a hit song. The one with
the single reached number 1. Yeah. But other than that, I can't. Can you name another song from the original soundtrack?
No.
Yeah, I can't either. But but like I said, I mean, they didn't put a bunch of contemporary music. It's not going to be a dated soundtrack.
That's true.
But the music was there when it needed to be. It wasn't bad. It didn't take me out of the film.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, but
other than the 8 different covers.
The one thing that I'll say about the music is that it fits with the rest of the movie in that they pull from the original, like when they have to. They do the cameos, they do the same ideas of the car and stuff like that, and like when it's time to pull that music, they use the same song again. So
yeah.
All right, let's talk special effects. I'll start. It was just hands down better, obviously.
Yeah, when you're looking at a CGI era versus the era of you have to build these things or you're using more crude animation to make those effects, then there's no comparison. The CGI is going to be cooler. And I thought that along with that, they made the weaponry a lot cooler, because in the first one, it's very willy-nilly. You don't have any idea you don't have any sense that they have any idea how to use those proton packs for most of the film.
Right.
And I feel like they're a little bit better trained and better versed with the weapons that they're using. And I like how you see them develop the better weapons for what they expect to be a pretty tough battle at the end. The weapons keep evolving, and then the last sequence in the third act of the film, they use all those weapons.
Yeah, the third act becomes an action film pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, you think Kate McKinnon ever thought she'd be in that kind of a scene?
Right, yeah.
I mean, she's kind of one that, if you know anything about her as a person, has always kind of embraced the weirdness. Yeah. But there's no way she thought I guarantee there's no way she thought she was going to play that role in an action film. But turns out, you're right. It really is more like an action film at the end.
Yeah. And I mean, I was like 90% okay with it. I didn't like when they do like the typical 3D thing where the thing comes right at your face and stuff like that. I saw that a few times, but otherwise it was a lot better. So let's close this up. Would you see this again, or would you see the original again?
Honestly, I wouldn't have any problem seeing either one again. I think this is one of those where time is going to be a little friendlier to the remake than the critics will. This, I don't think, has been critically reviewed very, very favorably, and I don't think a lot of the hardcore Ghostbusters fans are going to review this very favorably or look very favorably upon it. But I think it stands on its own. I really do. It's its own picture. It's its own story. It's based on a previous film, and it's constructed with some callbacks, but I would like to have seen it exist in the same world where there was a bit of a legacy. Yeah. And it turns out that Leslie Jones' character's uncle is Ernie Hudson, though not the same character.
Right.
But which I thought was kind of a neat touch. But if that would have been like a relative, I would have been okay with that, and I would have understood that. But as we have a whole pack of Ghostbusters walking by us right now, but they didn't come to the first one. They came to the 950 showing.
Yeah, they're only going to see it in 2D.
Yeah, right. Go figure. But anyway, see, it's past my bedtime. Yeah. But no, the 950.
Okay. Yeah.
But I thought this movie. I thought it stands on its own just fine. I'll be honest. Like, I wasn't someone like Ghostbusters was out when I was growing up. It never really appealed to me as a kid. And there were a lot of people, and
You bastard.
I know, right? There are a lot of people, including guys we met at Monster Bash, that what was, I believe the exact sentence was, Ghostbusters defined my childhood.
Yeah.
And there are millions of people of our generation that think that way and feel that way, and I understand that. I was not one of them, so I kind of went in with a different mindset. I've seen Ghostbusters. It stands on its own. I think it's the one that's going to hold up better over time. But one of the things I said going in is that I want to see this movie play more to the strengths of the four women involved, rather than try to rehash old jokes through the lens of these new Ghostbusters. There were a lot of female kind of jokes early on in the film, especially. There was a queef joke in it. Mm-hmm. I don't think Ivan Reitman made one of those, right, if I'm not mistaken. Danny Aykroyd didn't write one of those in. No, so you knew very early on, like, this is a film that was written from a woman's perspective. And truth be told, I think we're really starting to see as a society where we have not fully ever had a woman's perspective. We think maybe we had, but we really hadn't. And this is really a film that comes from a woman's voice. I'm fine with that. I think they do a fine job with the film. It stands on its own. I don't think it does anything to desecrate the original franchise. Mm-hmm. Not at all. I thought it was neat how they come up on the logo, which is graffiti, so... I think this. I would recommend the original, but I don't think this is going to be a film that gets discarded and tossed aside really easily. I don't think it's going to do particularly well at the box office. I think the reviews are going to keep some people away, except for hardcore fans, and maybe hardcore fans are going to think it's sacrosanct to the original to even have done this film. But I don't have a problem with the way it was executed. Really don't. Tell me where I'm wrong.
I have a problem that you keep saying that it stands on its own, because it doesn't stand on its own, and the reason why is because it leans a lot on the original. It leans on set pieces, on props, on the type of people that they are on.
Well, the original, what the original does is it sets the base for what you're willing to expect and accept out of a movie like that. So they go in thinking that they don't have to explain certain things to an audience. They don't have to explain the idea of ghost busting, because, as Melissa McCarthy points out in the lab, there are ghost hunter shows all over cable television now.
Right, and I thought that was great, but that wasn't actually exploited, because they done. I mean, that's a whole bit in itself. You could make fun of that. You could do with different things.
Right, I totally agree. They could have really gone along a lot farther with that than they did. But now, in 2016, we see a lot more ghost stuff out there. In 1988 or whatever, there were maybe during summer reruns, an oddball special on one of the networks. Ghosts, are they real or not? The way old school documentaries, a miniseries used to be, but or an unsolved mysteries episode maybe. But other than that, that's about all we had about the paranormal. Yeah. And with the explosion of cable channels, there are entire networks that basically air ghost programming any time of the day or night. So between that and between the fact that we have that foundation to stand on, there are some things that I think we're willing to accept, and I like that it didn't feel the need to rehash that, and leaned on that in places. Yes, as far as what I say by stand alone, I mean the story itself stands alone, like those characters stand alone. Okay, but I also I see your point as well.
Yeah, and I definitely recommend the original, because I feel like this one it leans too much on the original. I would have liked them to have done something completely different. If you can't have those four guys as the team, and you can't, just go a different direction, because I mean, like when you bring the Ecto one and you bring the Firehouse, although I guess they didn't use it, but it was there, and you have the same music and you have the same number of people and they're the same kind of scientists, and it feels like they want to have their cake and eat it too. It's like we're different, but we're not that different, kind of, so for that reason I wouldn't recommend it. And for Chris Hemsworth alone, I mean, he's just hard to watch in this film. He's borderline retarded.
Yeah, I like Chris Hemsworth, but he does not add anything to this film at all, and I think he's the single worst element of it, truth be told. And I can't.
This is not Red Dawn Chris Hemsworth.
No, this is not him at his finest. This is, hey, let's try something different. And I'm sure it'll pay me a nice I'm sure it did pay him a nice paycheck. But no, this is not him at his finest. He has done better. He will do better. This is not it.
Yeah. Okay. That's it for Battle Remake. If you guys want to follow us online, you can go to battleremake.com. You can find us on iTunes, on SoundCloud, and on Stitcher. We'll be back next week with the second part from Monster Bash. We're talking The Blob. Once again, if you want to give a shout out to the Neo Ghostbusters.
Yes, Northeast Ohio Ghostbusters. The website is neoghostbusters.com. If you're in the Northeast Ohio area or within reasonable driving distance for those guys, give them a call or check out the website. I believe it's neoghostbusters.com. They're also on Facebook, the Northeast Ohio Ghostbusters. They're doing what they do for a really good cause. They're trying to raise money through their appearances at birthday parties and things like that, so that they can grant make a wish to a kid in the Cleveland area. So a really good cause, and kudos to those guys. It's neoghostbusters.com. They're also on Facebook.
My name's Buzzweed.
I'm Eric Little.
Until next time, have a good time all the time.